tape as I requested, and I appreciate you monitoring my Twitter account. I think you know what I think. I think the president is intentionally disassembling the greatest quality of life in the history of the world. I believe that he is creating class warfare intentionally to get Americans to draw this line in the sand where I've never seen such political discourse in all my life. And yes, I do apologize for being part of that political discourse, because greater men than myself have advised me that that kind of street language in a volatile interview, as you played earlier, is not appropriate when we're trying to get some upgrade here in America. But I cannot put into adequate terms the condemnation I feel and so many Americans feel that this president's fundamental transformation of this country is indeed the destruction of the American dream of being compensated based on being the best that you can be. The concept of social justice and economic equality is truly bizarro. The president's a bad man. I want to make sure that Americans are encouraged to be the best that they can be, not to be compensated for not even trying. I really believe history will show that I've been right and the president and CNN was wrong. So
I want to understand, because a lot of people want to understand. And look, I understand you're saying now I want to elevate the discussion. I think a lot of people are going to say that's great if you started to do that. But I want to understand why you used the word mongrel when you did. Okay, because obviously, you know, we looked around. I looked it up in the dictionary. I'm sure you have at this point as well. The definition is a dog of mixed or indeterminate breed. And the only use of the word mongrel that I could find in common talk, because you're talking about street talk, was actually the Aryan Nation membership form, where you have to affirm, I'll quote, "I am an employed white and Christian. I concur that Aryan Nation is only Aryans of Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Nordic, Basque, Lombard, Celtic, and Slavic origin. I agree with Aryan Nation's biblical exclusion of Jews, Negroes, Mexicans, Orientals, and mongrels." That's the only use I could find of that word. Did you mean it that way?
Boy, you learn something new every day. No, I've never heard that reference before. I'll tell you, I've been a cop in Lake County, Michigan since 1982 or thereabouts. I conduct federal raids with the DEA and ATF and the U.S. Marshals and the FBI and Texas Rangers and the heroes of law enforcement. And we're rearresting fugitive felons who are let out of their cages after murdering and raping and molesting children, carjacking. We keep going after these guys. The adrenaline is something like you'll never experience. I hope you never have to experience it. But when we're done with these kinds of raids, we get together and our hearts are broken that we have to face these monsters, and we call them mongrels. We call bad people who are destroying our neighborhoods mongrels. I knew of no racial reference. I think the president is absolutely correct. Whites, blacks, Hispanics, yellow, red, we're all mongrels basically because we're mixed breeds. I concur with that. So I learned something there, and I learned something from your research into history. But for anyone to claim that I'm a racist or it had racist overtones is the typical crap that the propaganda ministry and the media, particularly most of your cohorts there, even though I got Piers Morgan's ass thrown out, and I'll do the same with Don Lemon and Wolf Blitzer when I can.
But you might be able to stay on
because I appreciate that.
I respect them both greatly. But let me.
Well, I just did. They don't deserve respect. But you go ahead.
All right. But let me ask you about something else you said about the president, though. Since you're saying there was nothing racial about it, I'm hoping you can explain a certain word here. In that same conversation that I played for you, where you used subhuman mongrel, you also said this.
A lot of people would call that inflammatory speech. Well, I would call it inflammatory speech when it's to protect Americans, and then you ask you to look into the television camera and say, what difference does it make that I failed in my job to provide security and we have 4 dead Americans? What difference does that make? Not to a chimpanzee or to Hillary Clinton. I guess it doesn't matter.
Chimpanzee?
Yeah, Aaron, I appreciate you playing that. Do you really think that I reference any race as a primate? I call my buddies in my band chimpanzees when they miss a good guitar lick. Come on, give me a break on that. I reference no racial overtones there whatsoever. I was referencing people who would look in the camera with there's 4 dead Americans in Benghazi and refuse to be accountable and say, what difference does it make? You've either got to be a punk, a liar, grossly dishonest, dangerously anti-American, or some kind of animal to agree with that kind of stuff. So insert the word dog or mongrel or chimpanzee. I have nothing against any race. In fact, my whole life is dedicated to my black heroes, my black musical heroes, and you know that. I have not a racist bone in my body. That's the Saul Alinsky propaganda ministry running amok like your goofball friend Paul Begala, who claims that I has been. I just celebrated my 50th greatest tour.
Ted, I know
50
one thing.
years, number one guitar player in Detroit last year. I'm a black guitar player from Detroit. Get over it.
All I know is that if I called the president, who is a black president, a chimpanzee, I would and should be fired. Because it is a racist thing to say.
I didn't call the president.
Well, then who are you referring to?
Never called the president a chimpanzee.
Not to a chimpanzee
Never,
or to Hillary Clinton.
Not trying to. You think I hesitate? People who support that it doesn't matter 4 Americans are dead.
People who looked into the television camera and said what the people you're referring to. Well, I will leave it to our viewer to decide whether that was a direct reference to the president or not. But we're going to take a brief break and come back.